Johnny, what is emotional freedom for you?
I think for me, emotional freedom is being able to understand and identify what emotion I'm experiencing so that I can learn what it has to tell me.
So it comes down to being able to identify and understand our emotions.
Yeah, I think so. Certainly it is for me. I think what's important to understand is much like anything, um, um, the definition of emotional freedom will mean something different to everybody. And that's absolutely right. And whatever their definition that they give is right, because that's what it means to them. But for me, it's about identifying the emotion that I am experiencing. And I think that can become confusing because let's take an emotion like anger. Anger is an emotion, absolutely. It can be a primary or a secondary emotion. And I believe quite often it's experienced as a secondary emotion because what's made you angry? Well, I had this altercation with this person at work and this happened and that happened. Oh, right. So actually, you felt rejected and you didn't want to feel rejected or you didn't want to feel inadequate, which would probably be a better emotion to, because inadequacy is a very powerful, invokes a lot of different feelings all at once. So you feel inadequate. You didn't want to have that very sensitive emotion. So you chose to be angry instead, because now you can throw things and you can say things and it feels like you're doing something or you're empowered in some way. But actually, quite a lot of the time, although anger is a very vital emotion and must be respected, um, if it's allowed to become rage, it can become very destructive, which I think is what a lot of people experience, hence the term like road rage, something like that.
Anger is an interesting emotion, but I'm particularly interested in fear. And at the moment, I've been reflecting a lot around fear, fear of failure, but also you speak about fear based resistance,
Mm.
fear showing up as perfectionism or procrastinating. So, how can we notice that some of our behavior is fear based? And what can we do about it?
I think fear, very understandably, comes with resistance and avoidance. Um, for example, I've had battles in the past with addiction. I don't want to be addicted to anything. Don't like the way that sounds, don't like the way that feels, don't like the way that might make me look to some people. So it's not going to be that. Instead, what it'll be is I think maybe I drink too much coffee. Maybe that's what it is. So now I'm starting to avoid it. I kind of know in the back of my head I've got this fear that maybe there's a problem there with certain things like alcohol, but I don't want it to be that because I don't like the way it sounds. So now I'm going to, and I'm scared of it. So therefore, I'm going to choose to be caffeine free instead. And then when that doesn't work, I might choose dairy free, or and I might go through this whole list of things, eliminating until I get to the one thing that I feared it might be. And I think one of the reasons why we fear it is, first of all, we know it's true, and the truth can land quite definitely with us. But secondly, I think, well, what then? Well, I understand and I know what to do now, but when I'm this, what then? I'm terrified of that idea. No, definitely don't want to do that. So I'm going to choose something else instead.
How about, so you're speaking here now around a fear of an addiction or realizing that you're addicted to something. But one of the most common fears, especially with business owners and entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you've also seen this a lot in your work, is this fear of failure. So looking at the analogy that you've just said, realizing, oh, maybe it is actually this fear of failure once you've eliminated all the other possibilities, then what you do about it?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, I think more often than not, what I've seen is actually more a fear of success. It's actually people get a bit scared about what it looks like to be successful because what does that look like, right? You've been living with this limiting belief that you're not good enough for a really long time. You've practiced that behavior, you've become an expert at it. And all of a sudden, you start to do really well at something. And that's urging you and nudging you towards becoming successful. And then the fear starts. Let's take something really visual like weight loss. So you want to lose weight. Everybody's gained weight and lost weight in their life. It's just how we are as humans. So, but imagine you've been living with being overweight for a really long time. And then you decide that you've had enough, something happens, and you've decided, right, that's it, I'm going to start losing weight. And you start to get success with that. You start to lose weight, you start to feel different, People start to treat you differently, start to give you compliments, which makes you feel uncomfortable. None of the foods that you eat every day are the same. You sleep differently, you feel different, you look different, everything's different. And the thing about human beings is that we like to gravitate towards what's comfortable and away from what's uncomfortable. Makes sense. Absolutely. Thing is, what's comfortable can sometimes be a bit familiar, which is what offers us the comfort. But what's uncomfortable, that success that we're starting to achieve, well, we're not familiar with that at all. That's filled with lots of things that we don't recognize, lots of things that make us feel uncomfortable, lots of things that stir up fear. And then if we're really, really well practiced with fear, we start to go, well, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? Oh no, but if that happens, then I'll lose my job. And if I lose my job, this, and then before you know it, the anxiety spiral started and we're overwhelmed and we just think it's much easier just to not do it. So I'm not going to do it instead. I'm just going to stay here. It's way easier. So what we have to do, I think, is we have to interrupt that pattern. So when I sit with clients, quite often people say all the time, oh, the client's spiraling out of control. No, the client is spiraling. And spiraling can go one of two directions. We can spiral in towards a solution, or we can spiral out using anxiety and make the problem bigger, make the problem more and more impossible, because that's what we're used to. We know what to do there. It's very familiar. It offers us this weird kind of comfort feeling. Yep, I'll just stay there and do that. So it's about identifying, okay, wait a second. I am starting to spiral, but I'm spiraling outwards, and I'm talking about things that haven't happened and may not happen. And that's a problem. So let's look at some of let's start to problem solve. Well, that thing at work that happened to me also happened to so-and-so a couple of months ago. And actually it wasn't so bad. And this happened because of that. And this happened because of this. And we start to rationalize it and move towards a solution, which then starts to make us feel a little bit more comfortable with it, and so on and so on.
What I'm realizing as you're giving these examples is I'm thinking a lot of the time we're either afraid of failure, which would be one extreme, or success. So if we take that lost weight example, we're afraid that we will fail and then we'll stay overweight and this will affect our health and relationships, etc. But also, okay, what if we succeed? Then we're becoming a whole different person. We're not used to this. We don't know what it feels like. It's the unknown. And so, how do we manage this when we're creating a big transformational change in our life or growth, whether it's our personal mindset or our business or our health? How do we manage not to be totally paralyzed by the fear, whether it's the fear on one side of failure or, like you mentioned, the fear of success? How do we not self-sabotage and keep making progress towards our goals?
Well, I think it has to start with how we frame it. So first of all, we can call it self-sabotage. That makes a lot of sense. We have a goal and we're getting close to the goal, and now we're seemingly doing these things that are sabotaging our progress. But actually, I wonder how helpful that term is. I'm not sure telling yourself that you're a saboteur or a self-saboteur is very helpful, because now every time you move towards a goal, you're going to be actively waiting for that saboteur to turn up, therefore kind of bringing it into fruition. So I like to use the term self-soothing. So now you're moving towards something that feels unfamiliar, which is the success that you've been looking for and you've perhaps not had before. It's unfamiliar, which is leading to feelings of being uncomfortable. And you're going to lean into your only known way of making yourself feel comfortable, which is probably going back to the old behavior. But the question is, what does that behavior give you? What emotions do you experience within that behavior? What is it that's offering you that comfort? Because if we can work that out, then we can start to identify different ways to get to that comfort, get to that nice feeling. And that is something that only you can do for yourself. For some people, it might be the cliche, have a bath, something like that, or it might be going to upskill and collect courses. I've got a brother who's a course collector. I often wonder when he's going to do something with those courses, but he just keeps going on to the next one, which is cool. That's he can do him. But so I think really what I'm saying is that it starts with the reframing. It starts, okay, I'm not self-sabotaging, I'm self-soothing. Okay, if I'm self-soothing, how can I do this without causing myself any problems or derailing my progress? Good question. Now what we've done is we've disrupted the process. which is helpful because now we're not just leaning into that autonomous behavior where we just keep doing things unknowingly and unconsciously. And then I think it comes down to something I heard you speak about this morning, which is just being mindful, recognizing what you're doing. um, Things like mobile phones, they help us practice that unconscious behavior. You know, you're sat there watching television and an advert comes on, you're a bit bored, you've seen all the adverts before, so you pick up your phone and then you miss part of the show, so you stop and you rewind and you go to do it again and you end up picking up your phone again. And you're like, how did I do that? I don't understand. I've done that, you've done that, I'm sure. And it's that unconscious we are becoming really good at because we're practicing it with these things. And it's about identifying, where are my practices of unconscious behavior? Where can I practice a different behavior? Because here's the thing, what we practice, we become good at. So if we practice always leaning into our unconscious behaviors, then we'll become very good at that. But if we practice checking in with ourselves often, I heard you say something about it this morning, checking in with that behavior and saying, okay, what's going on right now? Uh, I've seen people do it before. I've not done it myself, but they've started asking themselves, what color's the walls? You know, what is this, carpet or is this wooden floor? Just simple questions, just to bring them back into focus again. You know, so it's about reframing it from something, you know, not self-sabotage, something more like self-soothing, because that's what you're trying to do. You're feeling an uncomfortable feeling and you're trying to soothe that uncomfortable feeling by using familiarity. And if you're well practiced at self-sabotaging, then you're going to be good at it. And then it's about bringing awareness to what you're doing and the behavior that you're doing, and then choosing, because this is what it does. It gives you choice, which is what you don't have when you're being unconscious about things. You don't have choice. You're just doing things at this point. So bringing yourself that choice, that moment to go, whoa, hang on a minute. No, I don't want to be doing this. I want to be doing something different. You know, well, what is that I want to be doing? Well, I said to myself, I was going to be doing this instead. Right. Okay, I'm going to do that. You know, it's choice. And we're the only ones that could do it, but we have to practice it first. I hope that answers the question.
This self-soothing reframe is genius because it helps to resolve that inner conflict. When you're striving towards the goals and at the same time you're doing a behavior that doesn't necessarily align, that's when there's that conflict, and that's when it can lead to guilt and anger and upsetness and inner critic. But if you realize, okay, I'm just self-soothing because this is uncomfortable, this is unfamiliar, this is challenging for me. Therefore, this is a self-soothing process. And exactly how you said it, can I do some actions that help me feel calmer and more relaxed, like taking a bath or going for a walk or maybe taking a longer break during the day, and at the same time make progress towards the goal. So then there's this sort of reconciliation between both parties. We're still striving towards the goals, but we're doing it in a way where we're still soothing ourselves and being compassionate, because if we do the maybe overly fast, critical, dependent on the outcome, fear of the failure, the success, the perfectionism, all of these things, that's when we stagnate and come to a halt. So it's being able to sort of dance between the progress and the comfort or soothing or pace that works for us so that we don't get totally stuck.
Yeah. And I think it's about being more inclined to learn about yourself. I think, especially in business, we look to people that we respect a lot, you know, people in our industry, and we say, wow, I'd like to be like them, which is fine. You know, it's great to have a role model. It's great to extract some of the things that you like that they've done and make them goals for yourself. That's okay. But that doesn't mean that they have all of the answers. You know, you don't have to completely do everything they do the way they did it. You don't have to get up at 5 a.m. and do cold water submersion and breath work and whatever else, you know, before 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. You don't have to do that. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And it's about realizing that actually you have to check in with yourself, and you have to look into what it is that you want to do, what works best for you. You know, sometimes we see other people doing well, and instead of looking at that as aspirational, we look at it as, oh, we're not good enough, they're better than us. And all of that leads to those really uncomfortable and negative and self-destructive feelings. And before you know it, we're a loser, we're this, we're that, and all of these things. And they're really brilliant and they're amazing. You know, it's like you can see how it happens. And we just end up wasting lots of time just being horrible to ourselves. And I suppose that's what I'm getting at ultimately is stop being so horrible to yourself. You know, Be your biggest cheerleader, like, because if we teach people how to treat us, and if we teach people that we don't think that we're good enough, then guess what? They're going to take the cues from us, and they're going to believe that because we're believable, right? So I just think it is about that personally. It's about really believing in yourself that you can do these things that you want to do, because we can. And most of the time when I sit with clients, much like I'm sure you do, they're the ones that are stopping themselves from succeeding. They are the ones. They're making certain choices because they have limiting beliefs, which are fine. Let's look into those limiting beliefs. Let's clarify, challenge, and change them. But instead, we're just going to let those beliefs become our behavior, which is our attitude towards things. That's what beliefs and values are. They are our attitude towards life, which is what our personality, maybe. I don't know.
Combination maybe of our personality and upbringing, etc. But most
Yeah.
importantly, what we do about them more than where they come from, for sure. One thing that I realized when I was reading one of your blog articles is how perfectionism is also linked to all or nothing thinking. And I know this is something I have personally struggled with a lot. It's either all in or not at all. My husband calls it black or white thinking. I do this and I don't even realize, and it tends to be full on, full off, full on, full off. So I'm wondering, how have you maybe changed this yourself or with your clients? How can we find this sort of middle ground? It's a bit linked to this middle ground with the self-soothing of reaching your goals, and not be so all or nothing in our approach.
Mm. Well, somewhere between the all and the nothing is conflict. There's this conflicting feeling that we're having and we don't like it. I am somebody that believes that everything comes back to emotions. Emotions are like our software. I've said it before many times that this phone here is just an object without the software on it. The software allows us to communicate, it allows us to interact, it allows us to browse, it allows us to do lots of different things. And that's like us for humans. We are the hardware, and our software is our emotions. And so, looking into that conflict in the middle, we'll find that we'll have an uncomfortable emotion. All or nothing, all or nothing. It's interesting, isn't it? All or nothing. I'd rather take it away from myself and not have it at all, or have it all. Well, what about the middle bit? Well, maybe it's because we feel a little bit uncomfortable with being a beginner. Maybe we don't like that early stage where we don't know what we're doing and that we feel a little bit silly or a little bit stupid, or what does other people think? Oh, they must think I'm not very good because I don't know all this stuff yet. So it's, what is that? That's that inadequacy. That's that fear that people might perceive us a certain way. But everyone's been a beginner. So I think all you can do in those situations is, like we said before, is recognize what the all is, recognize what the nothing is, and search for that part in the middle. Well, what can I do today? Well, that feels really overwhelming. Okay, let's take a little bit away from that. Let's take a smaller step. Nope, that still feels overwhelming. Okay, let's take a smaller step again. At some point, we're going to get to a step that seems so silly and simple that why wouldn't we do it? It might just be putting a diary entry that says, make this phone call on Tuesday. And then on Tuesday, the small goal is to make the phone call. It's just about putting those steps in that are so small that they're doable and they're not overwhelming. But we're not going to do that until we start searching for ourselves, looking into ourselves, not looking on Instagram or wherever else, trying to find the answers from someone else. No, because they're not anywhere else. They're in us. We have the answers. That's what we do as coaches. We listen to people and we reflect back what we hear. And sometimes they don't like it and they go, "I know, I'm not sure about that." I said, "Well, you just said that though." They're just like, "Did I? Yeah, you did. Yeah." And then they become a bit curious about what they're really thinking in their head. So
I'm also a big believer in the small steps. And I think it's because for so long I was always trying to take giant leaps. And
mm,
after a while of taking giant leaps and it not working out, you learn that maybe small steps isn't that bad after all. When I
no.
built my meditation practice, I'd been trying on and off for months and months, maybe years. And I would do, half an hour, 20 minutes every day. And then I would stop for several months, try again. And then after reading Atomic Habits, I started with 2 minutes. two
Mm,
minutes every day, which was so hard for the high achiever in me. But I did that for 3 to 6 months. And now it's been, I can't remember, 3, 4 years, and I have like a daily streak. But it's because I started super small, for months. And then I went from 2 minutes to 5 minutes for months.
Yeah.
And it's because we try too big too fast.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We want to be the professional straight away. We want to be seen as that professional straight away, but no one was that. There's this wonderful image I saw on social media, and it was a chap standing at the top of a cliff, and he was holding up a trophy, and everyone was at the bottom of the cliff cheering him on. But what they couldn't see behind him was all of the trail of broken glass that he walked through and the bloody feet they had gone through. Everyone only ever sees the end result. They don't see all the hard work, all the sacrifices, all of the things that you got wrong, all the mistakes, all of the friends you lost, all of the opportunities you messed up. They don't see any of that. They just see you standing at the top holding the trophy, and you quite like the way that feels. So you just kind of let them see that bit, before you know it becomes this trap, this trap that we only want to show the successful sides of us. So I created this model called the EAT principles, and it's the three things that I believe we can control, and that is our effort, our attitude, and our ability to tell the truth. EAT. We can control how much effort we put into things. Yes, we can. We can do that. Some days it's harder than others, but we can control it. The attitude that we show up with. Some days we feel really grumpy and tired, but we make a bit of effort and we change our attitude, and we try to be more productive. But then the last bit's the hard bit. It's telling the truth. Sometimes when we tell people that we can't do something, we miss out on an opportunity. That's hard. That's difficult, but tell the truth and see what happens, because this is the magic of the truth. When we tell the truth, we don't know what's going to happen. We tell ourselves we do. We say, oh, yeah, if I do this, this will happen. Okay, so you're a fortune teller as well. Cool. Tell me the lottery numbers. But the thing is, it's like recognizing that we can put effort into life, as much effort as we possibly can. We can turn up to situations with the right attitude, and we can always tell the truth. And it's like when you're standing at the top of that cliff, don't let those people down there believe that you just did it really easily. Tell them the truth. Just say, hey, great trophy, but have you seen my feet? Have you seen all this? Like, it does take hard work. Be honest about it, because then they can be prepared for it. And then you're not setting the next person up to feel like they're failing all the time, because they've seen you make it look really easy, but it wasn't easy because you didn't tell the truth.
That's a great point. And I try and keep it in mind whenever I have comparisonitis and compare with other people is I don't know their journey. I don't know their life. I don't know what they went through to get there. And what makes me think that that's a better place to be in? Why would their life be better in any way? They're in a different stage. They might be doing better financially or with their impact, or maybe they're working on some cool projects. That's great. I don't know what their marriage looks like. I don't know what their relationship looks like with their friends. I don't know what childhood they went through. So it's good to keep a bit this perspective. It's not just about that outer reward, it's about the holistic approach of everything in our lives and focusing on our own journey and process, not
Yeah.
diluting it too much.
I mean, it's not about like I'm always careful that I don't say that everyone has to overshare all the time or anything like that. But I suppose what I'm saying is that if you tell the truth, then you don't become trapped by the lies. So for example, somebody might want everybody to think they're successful, so they show pictures of cars and boats and really nice hotels and stuff, and that's fine. Do all of that. But if it isn't your life, if that's not true, if that's a lie, then you now have to keep that up, and that's stressful. That's really stressful. And you bring that down to a smaller situation. You lie about getting a job on your CV, and now you've got to blag it, and the pressure of that, it will feel like the wheels are falling off. It's okay to be a newbie. It's okay to be a beginner. It's okay to be one of those curious people that wants to learn all of the time. I've got so many jobs in the past because I've been curious and I've asked questions, and people have gone, I like that you've asked that question, and everyone else in the room's like listening out because they want to know the answer too. So it is about just being curious all the time, and just being willing to tell the truth. Okay, so I've got loads of followers on social media. Yeah, but it wasn't easy. There was 3 or 4 years where I was literally talking to nobody. I was talking to nobody, and there was lots of people that just wasn't listening to anything I said. That's the truth of it. It is hard. So that when the next person gets to that and they're doing it, they go, yeah, well, Johnny said this would happen. He was honest with me. He told me the truth. instead of thinking, well, Johnny made it look so easy, why is it not easy for me? It's because I didn't tell you the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so important to not deceive other people about the journey and the process.
That's right.
Oh, so what would you like to leave the audience with, though? Coming back, maybe round circle to our initial topic around emotional freedom. So, people listening to this, we've spoken a bit about anger and fear. We've spoken about telling the truth. What would you like to leave them with to help them on their journey towards emotional freedom?
Challenge yourself. What I mean by that is when you're experiencing an emotion, when you feel compelled to do something, that's probably a really good way to put it. When you feel like you have to do something, just stop a second. Just stop and ask yourself, what's driving this? What am I feeling? Oh, wait, I think I'm quite scared. Right, okay. Well, maybe now's the time not to do anything. I think it's Brene Brown says, when we feel emotional about something, do not talk, text, or type. It's very good advice. Take a step back, take a pause, and ask yourself what's really going on here. Practice recognizing the emotions that you're experiencing, because our thoughts become our emotions become our behavior. And that's what we want to change. We want to change our behavior. To be successful, we have to start practicing the behavior that we need to become successful. Well, what's that driven by? Our emotions. So we need to start recognizing what our emotions are, not judging them, not avoiding them, not telling ourselves that we shouldn't feel that way or we don't feel that way. How do we feel? What's going on there? Let's investigate, become emotional investigators.
I love that. Thank you so much, Johnny. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.